Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. My name's Jack, this is Jthbooks, and it is time for my top 10 books of the year. I can't believe it, we're here for the top 10. Now you know I take this very seriously because I've got a shirt on. I always try and put like a nice shirt on because this needs to be taken seriously. It's sort of the peak video of the year, isn't it? It's when we look back and we reflect and I tell you my top 10 reads. It's an exciting time, and I just gotta look the part. But I'm glad to be here. There was a time, sort of maybe May, June, when I really was like, I think it's going to be a struggle for me to get 10 books this year. Nothing's quite hitting the caliber of what I need it to be. Some were, but some really weren't. Some really, really weren't. And I was a little bit worried. But it was actually a bit of a struggle to just narrow it down to 10. So there is going to be some honorary mentions. There will be some honorary mentions a bit later on because they deserve a shout out too. But we do have the top 10, and I always judge my top 10 on how it made me feel. If it gave me that special feeling that I can't really describe, but it's what I look for in every book. It is what I look for in every single book, and these gave it to me. I think books are magic. Even when they haven't got magic in, they can be about the saddest, most depressing thing. And if everything is just right, I think books and words are magic. And I love that. And if you watched my best books of the year so far, a few have stayed the same. A lot of orders have changed. But what I will say is some have gone and we have some new ones. Some have gone. I'll link it down below if you quickly want to go watch that first, so you can see, which ones have stayed, which ones have gone. But yeah, quite a few, well, I can think of two right now off the top of my head that have gone. So yeah, without further ado, shall we crack on? Shall we start the top 10? Okay, let's do it. Let's talk about number 10. Coming in at number 10 is The Gallopers by John Ransom. Now, I read this for the Polari Prize reading vlog that I did, and I'm pleased to say it won. And I'm very, very pleased about that fact. The Gallopers is set in 1953, and we follow 19-year-old Eli as he is dealing with a cursed field and a strange aunt and a mother that has disappeared, and is also the story of his relationship with two men, and each of these men carry their own secret. And it spans 30 years, and it's glorious. I think John Ransom is such an unbelievable talent. Like I said, it won the prize. It's the second time winning the prize, 2 years in a row. And I think it's fully deserved. His books feel so visceral, and they're just mesmerizing. I just feel like when I'm like I said, this was set on a cursed field, and I feel like as I was reading it, I could feel the dirt beneath my feet. He just has a way of transporting you to the page. It is unbelievably brilliant. He's such an unbelievable talent. But it's a look at queer working class lives. It's a look at first love and that sort of gritty, secretive love. It deals with homophobia, internalized shame, and there is sort of this mystery of what happened to his mother throughout that just keeps you on tender hooks. And it plays with form. There's sort of a play in the middle of the book that explains a lot, and I think it's really cleverly done. I absolutely love this book. I just think it's just so unique. I think John Ransom is a really unique writer, and I cannot wait to see what he does next. Coming in at number 9, and it was number 4 before. It was number 4 halfway through the year, so it has dropped down a few places. It is Evenings and Weekends by Oisin McKenna. In Evenings and Weekends, we follow 4 characters, and it's set over one weekend during a heatwave in London, and there is a whale. Do I need to say any more? Do I really need to say any more? This is a debut book, and I think it's incredibly well crafted. I love that we get the different perspectives of 4 characters, and they're also unique and individual, but they all match up really well. I think Oisin has a real talent for finishing a story and picking it up with another character and making the connection strong and real. This to me felt like I was just on a weekend in London, and it was really hot, and it was a bit unbearable, and everyone was trying to figure out their lives. It just felt like you could be speaking to so many people in London and this would have been their story. It plays with sexuality and gender, and it's just so impressive. It's so impressive. This is a debut novel, and I think what McKenna does really, really well. This is a debut novel, and I think what McKenna does really, really well is create such atmosphere. Like I said, it's set over this weekend in London during a heatwave, and it feels like it. You, as a reader, are instantly transported there. It at times feels claustrophobic and stuffy, but you have these characters that are really lucid and free and trying to be themselves, and the juxtaposition of that makes for a really, really interesting read. I think where it's set with 4 different characters and each different perspective, you get that emotional range, and I think McKenna blends them together really well because each one of them is unique and individual, but that moment where each story lines up is so well done. It's something I love, and it's done really, really well in this book. The book just feels like it has a pulse to it. Do you know what I mean? It just feels like you're reading it and you look up and I'm like, oh, I'm in my bedroom. I'm not sitting in a park in London. That's how it feels. It's transportive. And I think it's just a phenomenal feat that he has achieved, especially for a debut novel. There's a few debuts on here, and I just think this one is brilliant. Now, this book was at number 3 last time, and now it is at number 8. But we have Bad Habit by Alana S. Portro, translated by Mara Faye Leatham. Now, in this, we follow a young unnamed trans girl as she tries to find her place in the world away from her sort of working class, rundown hometown, and the results are actually quite magical. Not magical in the sense it's a fantasy book, it's magical in the sense that it does what I needed it to do to make the top 10. I can't really think of a book that accurately captures queerness quite as well as this one. It had me absolutely sobbing before going to work. I went to work and people were like, why are your eyes so red? And I was like, oh, I don't know. But I knew it's because I was crying over this book. It is a book that I think sort of dips off a little bit towards the end. That's why it's not higher. But just for that middle section where it describes so clearly and so acutely how different it is to find love for the first time when you're queer, and how it comes with so many doubts and so many and so much fear of how it's going to be perceived, I think is brilliant. Honestly, it had me crying. That middle section, I wish I could read it again. Well, I can read it again, but I meant for the first time. I just think this is a phenomenal book. I think it's beautifully translated. I think it's really heartbreaking, and it shows the story of trans lives and how they deserve respect and love and everything that everyone else has. I think it's done really, really well, and I really loved it. Coming in at number 7, we have Blessings by Chukwuebuka Obey. Maybe the most stunning cover of the lot. I just think this cover is absolutely beautiful. In Blessings, we follow a young boy who is caught in a compromised position with his family's new apprentice, and he gets sent to a Christian boarding school, and it is how that decision affects the rest of his and his mother's life. I think recently there has been some fantastic queer books coming out from Nigeria, and this is absolutely one of the best. It's heartbreaking and it's tender, and it is a dual narrative story. So you follow the young boy and his mother and how their relationship is affected by what their father has done and how they're separated and how it is affecting him. It also affects his mother, and I think it's done really, really well. I think the relationship between a mother and their queer child can really be something special, and I think Ibe has captured it really, really beautifully and honestly in here, and it was just heartbreaking. And then as the story goes on and you find out more of the plot and what's happening, it is heartbreaking, and you just incredibly feel for the character, and you get to see him as he grows up and leaves the school and sort of form a life, and you just so want him to be doing well. This is another debut book, and it's just one of those ones that I don't think it shows it's a debut. It made me cry with its beauty of its writing, and I think it's something special, and I'm so glad I read it, and I hope you want to check it out too, because I feel like it's flown a bit under the radar, this one, and it deserves a bit more. Coming in at number 6, it's a new one on the list. It is E.M. Forster's Maurice. In this book, we follow Maurice as he is growing up and realises that he is attracted to the same sex, and you get to explore this through the likes of the men he meets, like Clive and Alec, and how it affects him. This was actually a book that you all voted for me to read, and I read it on a cruise, and it had me crying. I think it is a book that is so beautifully written. I think it is a book that is brimming with the loneliness, and Forster captures it so well, so honestly, and I just think it's a marvel. I really, really do. It feels of its time, and it feels so relevant. I think he explores internalized homophobia so heartbreakingly well. It just tugged at my heart. I think he explores lust incredibly well, especially lust when we do not want it. This character absolutely doesn't want it. It's the furthest thing he wants, but he can't deny it. I think love is explored really well. I think for this to be written in 1914 and for the love of two men to be described so tenderly and beautifully and with a profound honesty, I think is incredible. It has some letters in it. If you've been here before, you know I love a letter in a book, and this has some brilliant ones, absolutely brilliant ones. I just think it's sort of a pinnacle of gay literature, but it's also a pinnacle of literature. It's a classic, and I think it has every right to be. It deserves it. I'm so angry that I waited so long to read it. It's sort of become a book that has entrenched itself in me, and I feel like it is going to be a favourite of mine for a long, long time. It's a brilliant book. It's hard to read at times because the main character is so hard on himself, but Forster just describes it all so beautifully. I was just impressed from start to finish. It deals with class and shame and everything. It has everything through the eyes of this character, and it's done so brilliantly. Now, coming in at number 5 is a book I read before I made my top 10 books of the year so far, back in June, and I didn't put it on there, and I can't think why. It was such a mistake because I cannot stop thinking about this book. I cannot stop thinking about it, and it is Small Things Like These by Claire Keegan. This is the story of Bill Furlong as he is going round making his Christmas deliveries because he is a coal and timber merchant, and he makes a shocking discovery. I don't even want to say any more than that to you. It's a short book, but my goodness, it packs an incredibly powerful punch. I feel like this book has been everywhere recently. It's sort of taken on a life on its own, but it deserves it. It really, really does. It is so affecting. After I finished this, I wanted to speak to somebody who had read it in person, so I gave it to my sister who doesn't read, and I said, this is short. I think you'll love this. It's short. Just give it a go. And it's actually kicked off her reading journey again. She reads again now. It is so affecting. There is not a word wasted. Every word has meaning. Every point lands. There is so much of the novel left unsaid, but it just gets you in the heart. It gets you in the feels. It questions, what would you do? It questions, would you stay silent? Would you speak up? And to do it in such a short book, is an incredible feat. It really, really is. They say it's a modern classic in the making, and I completely agree. It's phenomenal. It really, really is a phenomenal. It's just a book that lingers in your mind and in your soul and in your body, and I can't recommend it enough. It is incredible. Coming in at number 4, we have Mongrel by Hanako Footman. Now, this is another one of those beautifully written books that gives me the feelings that I'm after when I read a book. It is enticing, and it just made me cry out of its sheer beauty sometimes. It's so groundbreakingly honest and to the point, and it just makes you cry. It made me cry. I don't know what else to say. What I loved about this is it had a twist, makes it sound too sort of thrillery. It wasn't a twist, but it had a plot point that I didn't see coming that took me by surprise, but it made the novel sort of go into a different stratosphere for me. It's told from 3 different perspectives, 3 different narratives, each one as gripping as the next. And like I said, when it comes together, it was in a way I didn't see coming, I didn't expect, and it's so beautifully done. This is a debut novel, and I'm actually quite astounded by it because it is so sure of itself and it's so cleverly done. I think it's a book that has a lot to say about racism and about sex and desire and how it feels to grow up not knowing so much about yourself or who you are. And I think it's done so deftly. It's mesmerizing, and it took me by surprise, this book. I didn't expect to love it as much, but I think Hanako Footman has a real talent. I cannot wait to see what she does next. I'll be first in line to buy it. It's brilliant. It is simply brilliant. Coming in at number 3 is a book that was a bit further down the list last time, but it's jumped up a few spots because I cannot stop thinking about it. And it is The Unwilding by Marina Kemp. In this, we follow fledgling writer Zoe as she goes to spend the summer in Italy with one of her favourite writers and his family. And we also, while she's there, follow the perspective of Nimini, Don's youngest daughter. And it's the story of how those two connect years later. What I want to say about that is a very simple summary of it. I want you to experience it for what it is. This book is a book that you just let wash over you. You feel the summer in Italy. You feel these characters so deeply and so profoundly. And then there is almost this mystery of what happened to one of Don's other daughters throughout the book. And it builds and it builds and it builds. And when you get to the end, it didn't disappoint me. It actually went better than I thought it was going to. Marina Kemp does it with such grit and such realness and such clarity that I was astounded. I really was. It is a book that I can't get out of my head. I think about it so often. It's one I'm going to give to my sister for our book club. She doesn't know it yet, but she's getting this book. It is so glorious. I loved Marina Kemp's first book, and I'm so pleased to say I loved her second one even more. It's one of those books that sort of consumes you in everything. You don't realise how into it you are until you're not reading. You're like, oh, where's that book? Why do these characters feel real to me? Why does this story feel like it's a part of me? Why am I so gripped by it? It's one of those kind of books. It's beautifully written by Marina. It's a glorious book. I can't say any more than that. It's one that's really flown under the radar. I really wish more people would read this book. Coming in at number 2, we have Cinema Love by Jamin Tang. In this book, we follow Old Second and Bao Mei, who met while Old Second cruised for men in the working men's cinema, and it is the story of their marriage and their emigration to America. Again, this is another one where I've given you a basic summary of the plot, because what I loved and adored about this book is how much further than that it goes. It goes beyond what that summary is, and it surprises you as a reader. It surprised me of the depth of feelings I had for these characters. I love the fact that at the centre of this book there is this cinema that feels like a character itself, because it affects everyone's lives in monumental ways. And I think Jamintang does that really precisely, and as a reader he makes you feel like you know what he's doing, and it's believable for a book to hang so much off that, and it's believable, I think, is a work of genius. It's really affecting, it's really moving. It's another one that's sort of hard to read at times, and I just loved it. I loved it. I knew I was going to love it. I loved it even more than I thought I was going to. The way the story expands and grows and you are still hooked on every page, it's a joy to read as a reader. So loved it. I absolutely loved this book. Now, before we get to the number one spot, I do just want to give a quick shout out to two books, and that is Small Rain by Garth Greenwell. It's a book that I can't stop thinking about. If I had a top 12, it would be on there. It's glorious. It's written beautifully. He's one of my favourite writers writing at the moment. And The Lost Love Songs of Boise Sing by Ingrid Persaud. Another book that is unbelievable, hard to put down. It was in my top 10 at the half of the year, and it's just sort of edged its way out. But it's such a thick book, but I couldn't stop reading it. It's glorious. And I wish it could have made the top 10, but it was a tight race. It was a tight race. Now, coming in at number one is a book that I can't stop thinking about. Has sort of taken over my whole life. I gave it to my sister for a book club. She read it in one night. It is, drumroll, The Safekeep by Yao van der Wooden. This is a book set 15 years after the Second World War, and we follow Isabel, who lives a very quiet, very static life, and all that is turned upside down when Eva, her brother's girlfriend, comes to stay with her while he's away. I love this book. Like I said, it's sort of taking over my life. I think about it at the most random times. It was shortlisted for the Booker Prize. I can't believe it didn't win. It is the only one I read, but I can't believe it didn't win. It just felt almost groundbreaking to me how it is filled with desire. It is filled with this queer desire that is on the page so beautifully. It's sexy, and you feel this character of Isabella open up. You feel the character expanding and growing before your very eyes, and it's brilliantly done. It's marvelous. It's so glorious. I just sort of want to love this book. I can't even really. It's a struggle for me to sort of talk about it in a cohesive way, because I just want to scream that I love it. It also has a plot to it that I didn't see coming, and I think is very well done. I know some people did see it coming, but like I'm not that bright. I loved it. It's so clever. It, like I said, it is just filled with longing and desire, and I think it's some of the best I've ever read. And it's a book that is filled with sort of those simple things, but the writing takes it to another level, and to another stratosphere. And I think it's a work of genius and art, and I love it, and everything. It's just, I think it's brilliant. I think it's so glorious. And I'm pleased it's my number one, because I cannot stop thinking about it. So there we have it, my friends. My top 10 books of the year. What a year it's been. I saw some people say they didn't have a great 2024. Like, it's been some of the worst reading years of their life. But when I look back on those books, I think it's been a great year for my reading. I love every one of these books. The 12 of them. Brilliant. Let me know your top 10 books. Let me know if you've read any of these and you loved them, or if you disagree, we can have a nice chat about it. Let me know what your favourite book of the year was. Let me know if it was a great reading year for you, or if it wasn't. I love chatting with you all. I say it every time. I want to thank you all so much for watching. Feel free to like and subscribe, and I'm going to speak to you all really soon.